So we've mentioned challenges around organizations sometimes implementing an insider threat program or getting buy-in from senior executives. Insider threat program doesn't have usually a home. Sometimes it sits with cybersecurity function. Sometimes it sits with HR function. However, it doesn't have a dedicated home by itself. And we've seen similar examples, for example, when privacy legislation was introduced, or with cybersecurity or other elements, with new things that are coming, and it takes time to find the home or to find the dedicated executive owner of it. So with some research around insider threat mitigation and philosophy behind not in my organization mindset. I think it was 2025, the UK National Protective Security Authority did a research that highlighted the gap between the theoretical recognition of an insider risk and the willingness for organizations to treat it as practical organization-specific risk. According to that research, only 20% viewed insider threat as a relevant threat to their organizations. Similar research was done last year by Dr. Michael Robertson. He is senior security analyst with Google. So he looked at, he spent 14 months going through 1,000 insider threat cases in the United States. And he found that the greatest vulnerability wasn't technical, it wasn't cyber, it was cultural. Organizations, they choose to trust it too easily, to investigate too late, and learn too little. And there was a lot in terms of his discussions, in terms of how to deal with this culture of not in my organization. So we looked at 7 psychological factors behind not in my organization mindset. And often they are personal, coming from human side, from people. So there is an optimism bias with people thinking it won't happen here. And that's a very human nature side, saying it won't happen to me. So if you have kids, often with teenagers, you hear, no, it won't happen to me. And that's very natural. Often it's availability bias. We have never experienced that. The UK research demonstrated for those leaders, for those senior executives that experience insider threat case in any shape or form, they know really well of importance of mitigation insider threat. Sometimes organizations have experienced it, but it wasn't classified as insider threat. It could have been a disgruntled employee. It could have been a case of bullying or harassment. It could have been a cybersecurity breach. But if you look in isolation, it's just not called this way.
And putting on my old intelligence hat, the absence of, I suppose, information doesn't mean it hasn't occurred. And so put yourself in a situation where your organization has minimal insider threat detection. There's no program, there's not much of a concept. If it occurred, it's unlikely you'd see it, or as Marina said, see it for what it is. So if you haven't got the framework to detect set up, yeah, you're unlikely to see it, but you could have a very large problem. I know that might sound like a circular argument, but let's go back to the point. The absence of evidence doesn't mean it's not occurring.
And then there is a psychology, I know these people, I trust them. And there is a tendency for us to trust those people we know. We hear sometimes about supply chain, they're our suppliers, therefore we trust them. And that's, once again, fits well within human nature. But also, if you look at, we often with team look at the meaning of the words. What does trust actually mean? And trust means different things in different context. So if you look at just direct meaning, semantics of the word trust. It's you can describe it as confidence in another person's integrity and reliability. So we all know whether we trust a person or we don't trust a person. And often trust, in my view, in the personal dimension, it's absolute. And then there is a trust in the context of organization when leaders, when executives say, we trust our people. In that context, they mean a different type of trust. They mean that there is assurance, there is accountability, there is governance, there are controls in place. That is why we trust our people with access. So, and I think often when this meaning of trust is mixed up, then those types of psychological drivers can appear.
The issue of identity protection, this denial about, this does not reflect who we are. I.e., if we had insider threat, we couldn't have it because that does not reflect who we are. Because don't forget, a senior manager is investing so much in this statement now because they, in effect, oversee, resource, have approved the process of recruitment. And they might have even had a hand in saying yes to this particular person and bringing them into the organisation, or how the organisation runs and the culture of the organisation and so on is reflective on them as leaders. They've made decisions, they've demonstrated behaviours, hopefully positive ones, and so on. So from the point of view of their own personal identity, they do identify with the performance of the enterprise, of the people within it. And so, it's not a comforting thought to say, yeah, we could have people here that are doing the wrong thing. No, it wouldn't reflect who we are, so it wouldn't happen. So that denial can be very strong.
And then there is a psychological contract assumption. So with the concept of psychological contract, when the person joins the organization, they sign the physical contract about employment, and then there is a psychological invisible contract is created between a person and organization. It's expectation of a person that they will be respected, that they will be recognized, they will be offered a fair opportunity, that there would be a fair treatment. And those things are not written, but they exist. That's what each and every of us expect when we join the workplace. If this trust is broken, then people become disengaged. But from the leadership side, if our organizational leaders think we support our people, we treat them fairly, we try to do the best we can, then there is assumption if we treat our people well, they will do the right thing.
The other part of that is your employment contract is written down so everyone knows what the contract assumptions are. If you like, it's written there in black and white, everyone's agreed to it and so on. These psychological ones, though, are unseen, unheard. And so you as a manager in the workplace may absolutely have no idea how one of your employees, one of your team's psychological appreciation of their employment or their relationship with you has changed from what it was weeks ago, days ago, whatever else. So these are unseen. So it's a real risk and one that's very, very difficult to navigate.
And all research points that there is overconfidence in existing controls, especially coming from cyber side. We already have processes in place that will monitor those types of behaviors. And there is a strong connection or association of insider threat, linking it to cybersecurity area of education. In the United States, it is taught as part of cybersecurity school.
Yes.
And I think with trust versus mistrust, we often have a discussion whether trust but verify can exist or not.
Yeah, I love to go back to President Ronald Reagan's comment about, they were negotiating nuclear arms limitation with the Russians, and he said trust but verify. It's prudent. And the reality is, particularly in a commercial enterprise that we're talking about, the setting here is there's a duty of care at the management level to the people and to the enterprise and to the shareholders and to the community. There's a whole lot of things going on here. So it's not a simple binary, we trust people or we monitor them. Absolutely not. You've actually got a responsibility to monitor them, at the very least for workplace health and safety reasons. So that's it's an argument that you shouldn't get into. It is a fallacy. You can have both, and indeed you need to have both, trust and monitoring.
And I think that happens with the second meaning of the word trust.
So there's more than two meanings.
So in terms of solutions around that, education and awareness is one of the strongest things that helps to break in those psychological drivers or break the trust, the mindset of not in my organization. Sometimes it's practical examples, sometimes it's case studies, or those types of conversations and discussions that change the mindset.